I found a really cool fix for my feelings around narcissism and aversion to it, and just the general feeling around it. And I've always wanted to really make peace with it. It's something that's like really bothered me for a long time. I mean, I do sort of feel like everyone's on a scale of narcissism, but I also don't want to deny there's like extreme personality disorders where you just need to run away from that person. Like, don't walk, run. And I'm always like on the lookout for that. And I was really reflecting on where is this in me? Because I have a huge aversion to it. And narcissism is also like a really hot topic right now, which is probably a good thing. Like, it goes unchecked, and it creates horrible dynamics, and it's incredibly destructive to people's lives, both the narcissist and the victim, and victims, if it's a family structure or whatever. And so it's a crazy sort of family structure. But I also, as much as I appreciate the sort of like psychological therapy framework of it, I badly inside also like want to make peace with it. That I also appreciate the finding the human truths in things, and then it kind of like setting me free from having to worry about it, at least. Not saying I don't still have my like discernment for who I should hang out with and who I should stay the heck away from. Narcissism is a need for more space, and it can kind of be developed in people that had narcissistic caretakers growing up, because they took all the space and they belittled you, so you felt like you had very little space. And then when you grew up, you want like lots of space and do not want to give anyone else space, and anyone kind of coming into your space at all feels like they're taking from your space, and it's out of control. And so you need to stop that right away. And I think we all do have this to a degree. I definitely do. And also it varies based on how I'm doing at the time, or how people are doing at the time. Like, if you're in a tougher place in life, or you're struggling, or you're tired or whatever, then you feel like you need more space, and you want to feel more safety, more control, really. Again, I don't want to downplay, like, there's like narcissistic personality disorder, which is like, this extreme case of this, where the person also like really breaks down your self-esteem and is constantly like criticizing you subtly, and is trying to make you feel very terrible so that you like stay part of this bad relationship. That is 1000% also what's going on. But just getting into that makes my body tight and ugh. But I want to get into more of like the 10,000 foot perspective, because that always feels better, and always feels better to like return to who I truly am. Like, I don't have to be like strongly identified with the part that is fighting against these wrongdoings. Luckily that's already naturally happening. And when I feel into it, there was earlier, certainly, like, it gets into this extreme anger towards whoever was taking too much space, or pushing me down and taking too much space. Like, for example, there's a couple people in my life recently that I don't know that well, and like one guy I just work with some paperwork stuff, and he wanted to charge me more starting next year, and he's increased his prices last year too by quite a bit. And so I thought, oh, maybe he's taking advantage of me, or maybe it's just a simple, price increase because of inflation or whatever. And so, but the amount that I reflected on it, like, it bothered me many times, more than I would like to admit, mentally, that stuck. And then there was also like a little parking thing with a neighbor, and that also kind of stuck as well, like them taking too much space, literally. and but again, these are like very, very small things in my, life today. Like both of them, it's like whatever. I don't care, and I don't hang out with these people either. But the amount of like kind of minor obsession or mediocre obsession going on over it signaled like, oh, okay, this is something like deeper that I need to face, still, and have faced to varying degrees. But anyways, so sitting with it, oftentimes, like if I really am honest and I get quiet, then eventually it's like, okay, deep down, and it's really in my gut, there's like a deep anger towards whoever it is that's like unreasonable, because when you're dealing with somebody who's like really got the narcissism, it's impossible to give them feedback or criticism. They immediately like turn that around on you and like flip the story, and it's like it's like that feeling of like this person's crazy to deal with, like, is like the worst part, almost more so than them taking your space, is the fact that you can't talk about it. So anyways, that whole thing, like just someone who's being freaking crazy, that is like angering. And so, but with this anger, like for me in meditation and stuff, the only like big time fix for this is to really get into that anger, which when I really get into it, and the only thing that's ever worked for me with anger, by the way, like I've tried all kinds of things over many years, like yelling and processing, writing, all that stuff, all the ways you could psychodrama it, but really the only way that seems to actually transform it and free it is to sit with it silently and let it get as big as possible in silence. Like a stomping elephant that's like 40 buildings high, it's hard to describe this in words, but I can definitely feel it when I like tune in, and it's like coming from the gut. And this big stomping, like when it's fully allowed like that, it becomes obvious that it's a force like way greater than my body, way greater than myself actually going through me. It's like the connectedness of nature, and all of nature does not want this unnatural behavior. It's actually like nature getting upset with unnatural behavior, which is cool because it's sort of like anger is nature taking care of itself. It's like naturally getting angry, through me, but it's not me. I'm not that anger. I don't even have to like worry about it in a sense, because it's just like automatically protecting me, protecting everyone, speaking out for what's right. And even just that silent no, depending on how far out you want to go on this, that silent no is already healing the collective consciousness. Like it's already kind of permeating the bullshit or the people that are being dumb and selfish. But certainly it's clearing any trapped sense of it in me. And anyways, long-winded way of saying that when I went there, I was like, oh shoot, I gotta like feel the anger about this. Immediately, it actually just felt this like loving groundedness through my tailbone, like deep into the earth. Like I'm really, like really connected to it. I don't know, just like deep love. It makes no sense, but a lot of times that's just how these things are. They sort of, when they transform into their, like what they really are, they're amazing. Which is like, don't get me wrong, like this is pretty advanced stuff as far as like meditation goes. Like I have meditated, been on this path for like 20 years, and only in like the last 5 years or so have things like really started to like transmute like this, this alchemy where it turns into this like something like totally awesome, which is like, oh, that's your source. It's like the anger has a heart, and I feel the heart of that. And it turns out it's just like really, really big love that like confused itself in some like trap into like being, you know, tight in anger. But like when the anger is like infinite, then it's like, oh, there's plenty of space. You know, it's like that anger needs its space too, which is kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, which is like, I need my space. You know, I have the ways I've been a victim of narcissism, you know, starting from way back when, like that I need my space. Otherwise I will actually, if I don't clear this, I will perpetuate this, you know, taking too much space as well. And I think that's one of the hardest things, if you've been around a lot of that, is setting boundaries and knowing what's an appropriate amount of selfishness, if you want to call it that, or taking extra space, you know, being big, having boundaries. There's just kind of like no sense of boundaries if you've been in too much dysfunction and too much this narcissistic relationship. But it was really relieving for me to like just kind of find the simple clarity in like, oh, this is all that's happening. It's kind of a natural human response to not having enough space as a child, probably generally, and then wanting more space, more control. So anytime somebody, you know, you have extra money due, or you have someone encroach on your space, it may feel out of control, like you don't have enough space, even if you already have a lot of space and you take a lot of space. That's what I really ultimately want in life. Is it's not like I'm gonna lose any of my discernment or like not run away when I see someone with an extreme narcissistic personality. I think now I can see it a lot more clearly, you know, the more I do the work. The freedom is not being burdened by the like anger or the having to like worry about it when I'm not even around somebody who's like that, you know. And that's what I ultimately want, because that'll take care of itself, especially when I see that it's like just nature naturally gets angry for me. You know, if you're in a difficult situation, your gut like clenches up automatically, like it's there to protect you. It's there to protect me. So I know it'll be there if I need to do something quick or make a decision, or a situation doesn't feel right or fair. But I don't have to like constantly be in some sort of vigilance or thinking about it. And anyways, I hope that's helpful to anybody out there who's like deep in on this. I will say, like, I've misjudged people. Actually, I will say I've misjudged people as narcissistic because I've been so sensitive to it a lot in my life and affected by it. And maybe certainly even perpetrated it myself. I think there are periods of time, especially when I was younger, where like I took way more space and wasn't considerate of other people's feelings. And that might be actually the hardest part with facing all this. I forgot that came up, but that is another thing that came up when I was sitting with this, is that like, oh, maybe the hardest thing for me to let go of this is not like other people's wrongdoings, but also, you know, my own, you know, forgiving myself too. Not saying that I've been extreme narcissist, you know, although, I mean, I don't know, you know, it's just like when you hold guilt, or you hold any kind of guilt, like any kind of holding, even if it's like a little bit of guilt or a little something I did wrong or a big something, it, you know, there's still a holding there. It's still unpleasant, and I want to free that, just like everything. So yeah, this isn't a talk about non-duality, there is no self and all that. This is much more advanced than that for me. This is well beyond that. Like we're yes, we get it. There's no self. We've experienced that. We've, had those openings. This is when it meets like practical human life and like the things that I hold on to that I wish I would love to let go of. I don't need to. I don't need to hold on to them anymore. And it's not easy work, but I almost want to say it is, because it's so rewarding to free these like things up from the consciousness. It is amazing how it kind of became a phenomenon that everyone's like talking about narcissism a lot right now. I mean, not everyone, but like it's definitely trending. I don't think it was a couple decades ago, because I remember talking about it quite a bit and even reading books on it. Personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder and stuff. I was real into the like diagnoses then. I don't want to diagnose people wrongly, even if this is hard to say, but like even if somebody is extreme narcissistic personality disorder, I mean, I know now I would have like aversion and get the heck away as fast as possible and as gracefully as possible too. I don't even need to like violently push them away. I'm gone, right? but I also, when people do selfish things or this and that, I don't know, I don't want to be quick to like label them as narcissistic, it just because it has like a charge to it. I'm like identifying them, and in doing so, I'm identifying myself. It feels like I have to like grip into a body in existence. A separation is formed in the rift, a rift in the consciousness. And I like flow. I like to feel connected, even if I really don't like somebody or I don't get along with them. I like to feel the flow of like, well, this is a human that has suffered enough to where they need to act the way they do, or there's still a unconscious mechanism going through them that is creating this behavior, just as there are unconscious mechanisms going through me creating, my bad behavior. Ideally, I'd like to see it that way. But of course, you can intellectualize that all you want. It doesn't mean fixes it deeply within you, right? For me, I have to sit for oftentimes an hour or two to really get to the truth of it. And then it does shift. And I mean, when it does, and when it shifts, then it's like, oh, that's like real freedom, like real oneness. Like I can see oneness, but it doesn't mean I have to. It doesn't change anything about how I act in the world or who I am necessarily, or who I don't like hanging out with, or, natural discernment. But I'm free from that holding, that suffering, that memory, this idea of narcissism, even though I could still label it when I see it. Anyways, that's just my little discovery on this. So hopefully that helps you, and feel free to share yours in the chat if you like. Thanks for being here.